On the bloodiest field in samurai history, two generals faced each other for the only time. One swung his sword, the other blocked with a war fan. Neither man died. This was Kawanakajima, and the man holding the sword never lost another battle. Who was Japan's god of war?
Zero. That is the number of battles Uesugi Kenshin lost. He sent rice to starving enemies. And the one man who could have conquered Japan chose not to.
Uesugi Kenshin was born Nagao Kagetora in 1530 in Echigo province on Japan's northwestern coast, a land of deep snow, steep mountains, and fierce independence. His childhood was turbulent. Sent to a Zen temple at age 7, raised among monks while his family tore itself apart in factional warfare. By 19, he had taken control of Echigo. By 25, neighboring warlords already feared his name. He was not yet the god of war. He was still becoming him.
What set Kenshin apart from every other warlord of the Sengoku period was not merely his military ability. It was his religion. He was a devoted follower of Bishamonten, the Buddhist god of war, and believed himself to be an avatar of that deity. He took a vow of celibacy and never married. He fasted before major battles. He carried a sacred bell and prayer beads onto the battlefield. His soldiers did not just fight for him. They believed they were fighting for something divine.
Echigo was not a wealthy province by Sengoku standards. No gold mines, no major ports, no great plains for rice. What it had was Kenshin. Under his rule, the province became prosperous and unified at a time when unity was nearly impossible. His laws were strict and enforced. His taxation was fair. His soldiers were paid reliably. Other warlords gathered power by being feared. Kenshin gathered it by being trusted, which in 16th century Japan was far rarer.
Then came Takeda Shingen. The warlord of Kai province to the south was everything Kenshin was, and everything he was not. Brilliant, ruthless, strategic, married, a father of heirs, and aggressively expansionist. Where Kenshin fought for principle, Shingen fought for territory. Where Kenshin looked inward toward religion, Shingen looked outward toward conquest. Their domains shared a border. Conflict was inevitable. And when it came, it produced the most famous rivalry in all of samurai history.
Between 1553 and 1564, Kenshin and Shingen fought 5 inconclusive battles on the plain of Kawanakajima, a flat river valley where their territories met. Each time, they maneuvered, clashed, and withdrew, neither able to destroy the other. Military historians still debate the strategies. But what Kawanakajima produced, more than any tactical outcome, was legend. 2 generals so perfectly matched that their war became a work of art. Japan fell in love with both of them simultaneously.
The most famous story of their rivalry involves not a battle, but a gift. when the Hojo and Imagawa clans imposed a trade embargo on Shingen's landlocked territory, cutting off the salt supply his people needed to survive. Kenshin, his sworn enemy, sent salt to Kai province. His message: I fight with swords, not rice and salt. He would not starve civilians to win a war. Shingen reportedly said on his deathbed that Kenshin was the most noble man he had ever known. Japan has never forgotten either of them for this moment.
The Fourth Battle of Kawanakajima in 1561 was different from the others. Shingen executed a plan called the Woodpecker Strategy, dividing his force to flush Kenshin from the mountains like a woodpecker driving insects from a tree. Kenshin anticipated it. In the pre-dawn darkness of September 10th, he moved his entire army silently across the Chikuma River, positioning himself not where Shingen expected, but directly in front of Shingen's exposed main camp. The trap became the counter-trap. At dawn, the morning fog on Kawanakajima began to lift. Shingen's generals looked up and saw, where they expected nothing, the full force of Kenshin's army bearing down on them. The Battle of the Fourth Kawanakajima had become something no one had planned. A direct, close-range collision between the two greatest armies of the age, with both generals present, within sight of each other. Nothing in samurai history would ever look quite like what happened next.
Kenshin himself, in white Buddhist robes over his armor, broke through the Takeda lines and reached Shingen's command position. He raised his sword and struck directly at Shingen's head. Shingen blocked with his iron war fan, the Tessen, deflecting the blow. 3 times Kenshin struck. 3 times Shingen blocked. A Takeda spearman finally drove Kenshin's horse back. The two greatest generals in Japan had faced each other with their own hands. Neither would ever be so close again.
The Fourth Battle of Kawanakajima was the bloodiest engagement of the Sengoku period. Both sides lost roughly 1/3 of their forces. Shingen's beloved younger brother was killed. 2 of Kenshin's most senior generals fell. When the smoke cleared, both armies withdrew. Both commanders claimed victory. Military historians still cannot agree who won. What they agree on is this: it was the most perfectly matched battle in the history of samurai warfare, and neither man ever repeated it.
After Kawanakajima, Kenshin's world continued to expand. He accepted the title of Kanto Kanrei, the military administrator of the Kanto region, and launched repeated campaigns into the east, though he never permanently occupied the territories he won. He helped refugees and petitioners who came to Echigo seeking his protection. His reputation as a righteous warrior attracted people from across Japan, not as subjects, but as believers in something he embodied. In 1577, Kenshin fought his last great battle at Tedorigawa, routing the forces of Oda Nobunaga, the warlord who had already unified much of Japan, in a stunning defeat that proved the dragon of Echigo had lost none of his edge. Nobunaga's commanders retreated in disorder. The message was unmistakable. Kenshin was still the most dangerous man in Japan.
And now, for the first time, his ambitions were turning toward Nobunaga directly.
In the winter of 1577 and into 1578, Kenshin assembled the largest army of his career. He was marching on Nobunaga. Historians who have studied the campaign plans believe he had a realistic chance of defeating the Oda forces and changing the course of Japanese history. He was 49 years old, in apparent good health, commanding the finest military machine he had ever built. The campaign that might have changed everything was within reach. On April 19, 1578, Uesugi Kenshin was found collapsed near the latrine of Kasugayama Castle. He died without regaining consciousness 4 days later. The cause was most likely esophageal cancer or a massive stroke. He was 49 years old. He died without a battlefield wound, without a worthy enemy's hand, without a last message. His army, assembled for the greatest campaign of his life, stood down. The invasion of Nobunaga's domains never happened. Oda Nobunaga received the news of Kenshin's death and reportedly said, "Now there is no one left to fear. The realm is mine." He had survived the one general who might have stopped him. Within 4 years, Nobunaga would control most of Japan. Within 4 more, he would be dead, betrayed at Honnoji. Whether Kenshin would have changed that outcome, we will never know. But every Japanese historian has asked the question, what if the dragon of Echigo had lived?
But the deeper question about Kenshin is not whether he could have conquered Japan. It is why he never tried when he clearly could have. He held the Kanto region repeatedly and gave it back. He defeated enemies and released them. He possessed, by most expert accounts, the military capacity to dominate the country, and consistently chose not to use it for permanent conquest. His stated principle was gi, righteousness. He fought to correct injustice and uphold order, not to accumulate power for its own sake.
Uesugi Kenshin is buried in Yonezawa, in the domain he left to his adopted sons. Japan built shrines to him. His memory is kept alive in Niigata Prefecture, with festivals and statues. He appears in countless novels, games, manga, and dramas, always as the noble warrior who fought for something beyond winning. 500 years after his death, the question he embodied still has no simple answer. Is there honor in being capable of total conquest and choosing not to pursue it? Kenshin said yes. Japan believed him.
Next time on Samurai Chronicles. Before Musashi, there was Kojiro, the most technically perfect swordsman Japan ever trained. Some say he was destined to lose. Others say he was robbed. The real story of Sasaki Kojiro. Next episode.
If the story of Uesugi Kenshin, the warrior who chose principle over power, stayed with you, subscribe for new episodes every day. Japan's greatest stories are never just about who won.